Hello everyone, myself Miss Halund SS, Assistant Professor, Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. Now, today we are going to discuss about basic human rights. In that, fundamental rights and economic programs we are going to discuss. Now, let us see about that. Then, fundamental rights in India. Fundamental rights are those rights which are essential for intellectual, moral, and spiritual development of citizens of India. As these rights are fundamental or essential for existence of all-round development of individuals, hence they are called as a fundamental rights. These are enshrined in part number 3, which is included in article number 12 to 35 of the Constitution of India. That means it is involved in article number 12 to 35, which will discuss about fundamental rights of India. These include the individual rights common to most, such as equality before the law, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, religious and cultural freedom, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, right to constitutional remedies for the protection of the civil rights by means of writs. Writs means what in Marathi we call it as a करार, एक प्रकारचा करार or bond we call it in Marathi त्याचे, such as a corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari. The fundamental rights apply universally to all citizens, irrespective of race, place birth, religion, caste or gender. That means in Marathi we call it as a जे काही मानवी मूलभूत अधिकार आहेत ते प्रत्येकाला वर्णभेद, जातभेद, जन्म ठिकाण, धर्म, जात, पंथ याच्यावरती माणसावरती ते वेगवेगळे नाहीत तर सगळ्यांना सेम आहेत. The Indian Penal Code and the other law prescribes the punishment for the violation for these rights subject to the discretions of the judiciary. Thoughts the rights conferred by the Constitution other than the fundamental rights are also valid right protected by the judiciary. In case of fundamental rights violations, the Supreme Court of the India can be approached directly for ultimate justice as per article number 32. That means related to violations and the right against that judiciary part, and what are the crimes is happened in that case, that article number 12 is related to this for taking action on that. Along with this, the rights have their origins in many sources including England Bill of Rights, the United States Bill of Rights and France's Declaration of the Rights of Man. That means basic human rights in our India came from many more countries related to England, United States, France. Along with this, there are 6 fundamental rights recognized by our Indian Constitution. That means by taking a reference of these countries, our Indian Constitution defined 6 fundamental rights related to human beings. What are these? Just see. First one is the right to equality, which is mentioned in article number 14 to 18 in our Indian Constitution. Then second right is related to right to freedom, which is mentioned in article number 19 to 22 in our Indian Constitution. Then next right is a right against exploitation, that means Shoshana Viruddha Adhikar, which is mentioned in article number 22, 23 and 24. Then right to freedom of religion, which is mentioned in article number 25 to 28 in our Indian Constitution. Then cultural and educational rights, this right is mentioned in article number 29 and 30. And last right is a right to the constitutional remedies, which is mentioned in article number 32 to 35. That means from article number 14 to article number 35, these articles are related in our Indian Constitution related to our fundamental rights. Along with this, the first thing is right to equality, which includes the right to equality includes before the law the prohibition of discrimination on the ground of religion, race, caste, gender or place of birth, equality of opportunity in matters of employment, the abolition of untouchability and abolition of titles. Untouchability म्हणजे वर्णभेद, भेदाभेद, अस्पृश्यता. The right to second right is related to the right of freedom, which includes of the speech and expression, assembly, association or union or corporatives, movement, residences, and right to practices any provision or occupation. That means we are having any kind of a freedom related to choosing the provision. Along with this, the third right is related to the right against exploitation. Exploitation means what? Shoshana Viruddha Adhikar. That will prohibits all the forms of forced labor, child labor and trafficking of human being. That means मानवाची तस्करी. Trafficking means what? तस्करी related to human being. For some people are doing such like taking that small child kidnapping and taking out their kidneys and selling it to any kind of a doctor. Then that type of things are came under that trafficking, and this is one of the crime related to small children. Then this have matter is came under the title that is a right against exploitation. Then next is related to right to freedom of religion, includes the freedom of consciences and the free profession, practice and propagation of religion, freedom to manage religious affairs, freedom from certain taxes and freedom from religious instructions in certain educational institutes. Along with this, the cultural and educational right preserve the right of any section of citizens to conserve their culture, language or scripts, and right of minorities to establish the administrator educational institutions of their choice. Along with this, the right to constitutional remedies is present for enforcement of fundamental right. Then in detail we are going to see about these rights. First right is a right to equality. That right to equality which is explained from article number 14 to article number 18 of the Constitution of India. It is the principal foundation of all other rights and liberties and guarantees related to all other rights. Samanta ka adhikar in Marathi we call it as equality before the law. That is article number 14 of the Constitution guarantees that all the people shall be equally protected by the law of the country. It means that the state will be treat people in the same circumstances alike. This article also means that individuals wherever citizens of the India or otherwise shall be treated differently if the circumstances are different. Along with this, social equality and equal access to the public area, this is related to article number 15 of the Constitution state that no citizen of India shall be discriminated on the basis of religion, race, caste, place of birth. Every person shall have equal access to the public places like public parks, museums, well, bathing ghats, etc. However, the state may make any special provision for women and children. Special provision may be made for the advertisement of any social or educational backward class or scheduled class or scheduled tribes. Tribes means what? Jamaat. In Marathi we call it Jamaat. Then next right is right to freedom. In that in this type of a constitution, that article number 19, 20, 21A and 22 are involved, and with the view of guaranteeing individual rights that were considered vital by the frames of Constitution. It is a cluster for four main laws. The right to freedom in article number 19 guarantees the following six freedoms. What are these freedoms? Just see. Freedom of speech and expression on which the state can impose the reasonable restriction in the interest of sovereignty and integrity of the India, the security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign state, public order, decency or morality, or in relation to contempt of court, deformation or incitement to an offense. Offense means what? Guna, crime, one of the type of crime. Freedom to assemble peaceful without arms, on which the state can impose reasonable restriction in the interest of the public order and the sovereignty and integrity of India. Along with this, the freedom to form association or union or cooperative societies, on which the state can impose reasonable restriction in the interest of public order, morality and the sovereignty and integrity of India. Along with this, the citizens have the freedom to move freely throughout the India, although reasonable restriction can be imposed on this right in the public interest. For example, to control an epidemic, restriction on the movement and travel can be imposed. Then next point is related to right to information, that is RTI. In that, right to information has been given this status of fundamental rights under the Article 19(1) of the Constitution, which is defined in 2005. Article number 19(1), under which every citizen has freedom of speech and expression and the right to know how the government works, what role it plays, what are its functions, and so on. Along with this, next right is right against exploitation, Shoshana Viruddha Adhikar. In that, child labor and beggars, that is the unfree labor, is prohibited under right against exploitation. The right against exploitation gives in Article number 23 and 24 in our Indian Constitution, which will provide for two provisions, namely the abolition of trafficking in human beings and beggars, that is a forced labor, and the abolition of the employment of children below the age of 14 years is in a dangerous job like factories, mines, etc. Then along with this, the child labor is considered a gross violation of the spirit and provisions of the Constitution's. Beggar practiced in the past by landlords has been declared a crime and is punishable by law. Along with this, the economy program, where at the local, national or international level, economic policy has determinative implications for the enjoyment of human rights. The policy choices made by government and other powerful actors makes the difference between a life of dignity and one of the deprivation and injustice for literally billions of people. Despite these facts, the human rights movement has until recently been hesitant to grapple with the politically continuous field of economic policy. However, when a tiny handful of elite individuals control more wealth than the rest of the humanity and countless millions are denied their most basic human rights, this disconnect can no longer be ignored. CESR is on the vanguard of the burgeoning movement that is seeking to bridge the long-standing divide between human rights and the economic policy. In accordance with human rights treaties that has been signed and ratified by almost all countries. Government are required to mobilize the maximum of available resources for the fulfillment of human rights. Their economic policies are also subject to precise the standard of participation, transparency, accountability, and non-discrimination. Along with this, moreover, these standards are applicable to the both national and international human rights impacts of economic policies, as government are obligated to ensure such a policies serve to advance rather than impede human rights in other countries. Along with this, much of the economic instability of recent years and the preserve deprivations that continue alongside unprecedented level of the wealth can be traced back to the government failure to comply with their human rights obligations in this regard. Working in a close collaboration with a partner organization, CESR is bringing human rights standard to bear in the design and implementation of economic policy around the world. Along with this, building on our pioneering working in monitoring compliances with economic and social rights standards, our austerity and its alternatives project sees us calling government to account for ill-convinced austerity programs in countries such as Ireland, Spain, Brazil, and South Africa. Alongside this, our challenging fiscal injustice through a human rights projects is bringing the tax justice and human rights communicates together in the cohesive and dynamic movement demanding justice in the generation and allocation of resources. CESR lead the creation of a new initiatives for the principle and guidelines on a fiscal policy and a human rights in Latin America and the Caribbean with a distinguished set of regional partners. In the immediate aftermath of the 2007 to 2008 global financial crisis, it seems that the injustice of unfettered capitalism and the shortcomings of the economic planning that went with it could no longer be ignored. However, the International Committee has largely failed to learn the lessons of the collapse and the rise of a fiscal austerity and the proliferation of taxes abuse are the new norms. CESR's Human Rights in Economic Policy program is challenging these injustice and unsustainable dynamics by uplifting the transformative powers of the human rights in economic policy making. Ultimately, economics must serve the needs of ordinary people rather than the people being at the mercy of the economic in which they live. CESR's Human Rights in Economic Policy program is challenging those unjust and unsustainable dynamics by uplifting the transformative powers of the human rights in economic policy making. Ultimately, economics must serve the needs of ordinary people rather than the people being at the mercy of the economic in which they live. The financial crisis and increasing the competition of the ownership and the control of natural resources have, in many places, translated into a serious denial of access to employment, education, health, social security, food, housing, water, and other basic necessities. Along with this, they have also resulted in unprescripted flows of migrants and the refugees in such an instant as women, childs, indigenous people, migrant and member of disadvantaged and marginalized group disproportionately suffers. This is exacerbated by the manifestations of discrimination and the extremes. Moreover, the crises have often resulted in the serious violation of the civil and political rights when these excluded from the national development agendas, protest against their long-standing abuse and discrimination. Their call for a fair share of the pie and for the dismantling the structure of the inequality is often meant with a force by those whose power and the status quo are threatened. Along with this, these issues point to a misalignment between the scope and impact of economic forces and actors on the one hand and the political will be and ability of status to meet their human rights obligation by protecting against human rights abuses on the other. Along with this, the changing patterns in the international foreign investments and the increasingly powerful role of the new economic entities present new challenges, including with a regard to corporate compliances, accountability, and the responsibility to respect human rights. The policies and program relevant to the exploitation of the natural resources and to the access and delivery of the basic social services and goods such as healthcare, education, water, sanitation, and housing are frequently pursued by states without a sufficient recognition of their corresponding human rights obligations and responsibilities. Along with this, especially states often fail to comply with their obligations to formulate development policies on the basis of the active, free, and meaningful participation of their population. Limited awareness among the actors regarding the standard applicable to the citizen. Then globalization systems such as the international financial market and the trade are run without a human rights safeguards. Among the factors behind which is explained in a 2007 to 2008 food crisis was the speculations in the food commodities triggered by an influx in the international market of investments fueling the housing crisis. Sharp hikes in food prices were further exacerbated by the export bans adopted by the food exporting countries. The absence of the human rights safeguards resulted in a serious food insecurity and hunger, particularly in a food importing poor countries. The world was unprepared to preempt or rapidly respond to the negative fallout of the 2008 global financial crisis. Bailout for financial institutions, often followed by austerity measurement considered the prevailing policy responses to the crisis, a response which was disproportionately felt by by marginalized group and the migrants. Austerity measures were implemented with the limited political resistances in a spirit of a growing body of evidences that they threatened both the human rights and a long-term economic growth. The crisis revealed systematic flaws in the international monetary and the system. Since their adoptions at the Millennium Summits in 2000, the 8 Millennium Development Goals, that is the MDGs, have raised the profile of the poverty as an issue of international concern. Poverty means what? Daridrita. However, a number of human rights gaps have been identified in both their design and implementation. As such, the MDG deviated from the aspiration of the fundamental principle of the 2000 Millennium Declaration, which they were meant to realize. Along with this, these gaps include the lack of thematic balance with a disregard for civil and political rights in areas such as personal security, administration of justice, and political participation. Poor specification, especially in relation to their qualitative aspects and non-alignment of global goals. The target and indicators with a human rights treaty standards. Inappropriate adoption of a global goals to natural constraints, failure to address discrimination and increasing the inequalities, weak accountability for both the process and outcomes, and non-participatory processes, and discard for process aspect in general. Along with this, economic and human rights, in that Reynold Dworkin in 1978 considered human rights as a being essentially a mechanism protecting minorities from decisions taxed by the majorities for their own profit but result in a loss for the former. This definition is a very important because it means that the enrichment of one part of the world, for example, cannot be rightfully pursued at the expense of the material, cultural and spiritual impoverishment of another part, especially if this constitutes its weakest link. Asserting economic rights should not therefore be taken as an equivalent to maximizing utility, or rather social utility should not be mistaken for aggregate utility. Along with this clearly tells us that economic goals must be redefined. Take productions, for example, indeed producing any particular commodity, having in mind the satisfaction of a consumer's demand or a citizen's request. In other words, the assertions of the human right are two different concepts, even if the products themselves might be perfectly similar and the actual production also undertaken in a similar fashion. Within economic mainstreams, throughout the meeting, effective and viable demand is satisfying enough as a social role for the procedure, and that part of the population which is consequence is stripped of access to one particular commodity, one account of budget consideration should not be of concern. On the contrary, in case of a human rights assertions through the supply of the same commodity, no one should be left out regardless of the budget constraints. On the other hand, private demand is being met because its nature is mainly individual, and on the other hand, a public demand is being met because in contrast its nature is now mainly social or collective. Therefore, according to the corporate logic meeting, private demand is a normal procedure, whereas a meeting public demand is not. When aiming at the integration of a human rights, the methodology used by the economic need to shift away from the concept of satisfying the specific demand created by an individual to the more inclusive concept of satisfying the overall need of the community. Which means taking into consideration the demand created by any individual as a whole, regardless of whether or not this same demand is strictly viable. Along with this, the second side of this conflicting interpretation of the relationship between economic and human rights concerned the individual that promoting human rights, that is economic, social and cultural, such as civil and political, depends on sound economic performance. This interpretation is particularly fallacious for two main reasons. First of all, throughout history, human rights have essentially been fought for, not received and therefore it is simply a delusion to take a human rights as some sort of a trickle down effect of economic performance. Along with this, indeed, women's right to vote, the right to form the trade unions, or the right to paid off holiday, for instance, resulted, as we have pointed out, from collective movements taking their claiming to these rights frequently violently dissipated as a matter of fact and not from simple economic growth. Secondly, accepting the dependence of the human rights on economic performances would inevitably lead us to a financial dead end. Indeed, if on the one hand promoting a human rights as the principal goal may constitute an obstacle a good economic performance conditions. Along with this, the essence of the conflict between the economic and human rights also resides in the way the political and the social are apprehended. As a Henry Bortley in 1996, for the instant, agrees the social and the political sound to be taken as a territories where the major social choices are made, rather than those where the conflicting the natures of economy and society are expressed. It is important to stress that a passive and the sympathetic society is as important for both the economy and human right are courts and the markets, because of the mainstreams twisted vision, social and the political choices such as these concerning human rights may be considered an unbearable cost for the economy. This is the most convenient, although patently based approach, as most of the time mainstream economics only considering a part of all the cost related to the human rights. Indeed, if many communists with a certain financial entrepreneurs even devote themselves to calculating the cost of the social security, for instance, which the confused goal of demonstrating societies inability to pay the price of what some may consider optopaying policies, where a few of those who according to the same principle are coherent enough to also calculate overall cost for the society of the inexistence of the social security, thus revealing the ideological biases which hiding under the marks of analytical rigor di- dictates and aligned plurality of economic, social and cultural rights. Human rights also generate the benefits, though these are harder to monetize and consequently harder to handle within the typical cost benefit confrontations dear to mainstream economics. However, even if his confirmation could produce tangible result, cost and benefits could never be taken as the fundamental criteria for the integration of the human rights and economics. Human rights did not altogether stream from any evidence related to individuals through some form of positive reasoning, thereby unequally demonstrating the social utility maximization and would be obtained should those rights be adopted. On the contrary, human rights resulted from a normative reasoning according to which the individuals considered a dignified existence impossible to reach without them. Thus, the choice individuals are called to make is not a matter of whether the human rights should be adopted or not given the economic system, but which is the most favorable economic system given the adoption of human rights in a democratic society. If the human right opinions collides with a definite system of economic rules, it is then necessary to enrich this system and modify its rule. These are all the related to basic human rights and economics related to Indian Constitution. Okay. Thank you.